Terve! Hello! Welcome back to the Finntegration Society. My name is Dale, and I am an immigrant. I'm glad you are here. Don't forget to like this video if you learned something useful from it. It only takes a moment, and it doesn't cost you anything. I appreciate it, and it helps motivate me to make more and better content for you. Today, I'm going to discuss transportation options here in Finland, and I will try to answer the question, do you need a car to get around? I'm going to try some new things with this production, including getting out of the studio and taking some photos and possibly video while I'm out. Please bear with me. I do everything myself, and while I do strive for the highest possible production values and quality, it takes time to learn all the technical stuff and get it right. So you may notice some variations in sound quality or video quality. I appreciate your understanding and your support. I'm also going to spend a lot of time on this episode because if you are like me, you really don't have much experience using buses or public transit to get around, and this information will be very useful to you. If you are from one of the 2 towns in the US that have good public transit systems, a lot of this may be very familiar. Anyway, in the US, the phrase public transportation options are almost dirty words. Like Lisa Simpson from the iconic TV show The Simpsons said, public transportation is the transportation option of choice for the poor and very poor alike. Sadly, with few exceptions, this is true. I must admit that I had a terrible attitude and bias towards the idea of public transportation when I first arrived in Finland. I was from a background of living in places where, quite frankly, the buses, trains, and other options are simply terrible at best. Buses would come by when they felt like it, or sometimes not at all. The idea of a schedule was something that is more of a suggested arrival time and not really anything that you can plan around. Trains, buses, and light rails were often de facto homeless shelters, populated by dangerous or drug-addicted people with no other housing options. Also, in the US, since buses only run every hour or so on most routes, you must be at the bus stop at least 15 minutes early in case the bus driver is ahead of schedule that day. And you must have an alternative plan in mind in case the driver decides simply not to show up or not to pick you up for whatever reason. Sometimes they just don't feel like it, or they are so far behind that there is no time to do so. This means that if you are trying to use public transportation to, say, get to work, well, good luck with that. Add to this that your manager would not be sympathetic or understanding of your reasons for not showing up or for being very late, any more than my Finnish managers were here, as how you get to work is your problem, not theirs. Therefore, as I said, my attitude was very poor and admittedly quite biased when I arrived here, and the options seemed beyond my comprehension. The idea that buses would be somehow reliable and on schedule the vast majority of time was inconceivable. How could this be so, I wondered. The answer to this question is a matter of intelligence and planning. In Finland, public transportation options are carefully designed and planned to actually serve the needs of those who rely on them. What? Yes, it's true. Here are some pictures from the Co-market near my flat that I talked about in the last episode. You will notice that there is a bus stop literally right outside the front door, like 10 meters. You will also notice a city bike parking area, and that there is only one bike there, despite the 2 large parking areas for them. I'll talk about other options like scooters, bikes, taxis, trains, and yes, even walking in the next episode. But back to living in a well-planned city with carefully thought-out transportation options like buses. This means that the buses do run on time, typically to the minute or a couple of minutes. I had a friend who would play pinball with me late at night, and she lived a ways out of town. The last bus of the night would leave at midnight, and we were about 2 minutes walk from the bus stop. She would hang out and play until literally 3 minutes before the bus was due. I was much more nervous for her than she was. Again, because where I was from, the schedule was a broad guideline for the driver, and a 12 o'clock stop could mean anything from 11:45 to 12:15, so you better be there when it comes, because it ain't gonna wait for you. This is not the case here in Finland. A driver who passes a stop 10 minutes early would get lit up by the passengers they had screwed over. There would be no end to the complaints and gripes that would deluge the driver's supervisor. They would be questioned and asked why they were not able to keep the schedule. This rule applies especially to the center or tori, which means market square in Finnish. and is typically the central dispatch spot for all the buses in a particular town. So if you can get to the tori, you can get to anywhere else in town from there. And buses that arrive early to the tori will wait until they are supposed to leave so that folks who are relying on them will have a chance to actually catch the bus. This is why my Finnish friend was not afraid that she would miss her bus if it arrived early. She knew it would not leave until 12 o'clock. Remember how I said that Finns were very punctual? This applies all across society, and it means that the trains and buses do run on time, as I said before. So you can rely on them, especially now that in today's world you can watch the bus approach your stop on the app in real time. This makes not having a car of your own a lot less of a hassle than it is in the US. In fact, here in Finland, you may find car ownership to be more trouble than it's worth. Although there are times when having a car, or a friend who has one, is quite useful and necessary. And there are some interesting rental options you will find useful, like when you need to get that awesome dining room table home from the thrift store. I'll cover those options in the next episode. Here in Lahti, the tori has several stops around the perimeter, and typically all the buses that go to one side of town will stop on one side of the square, and all the buses that go to the other side of town will stop on the other side of the tori. This makes trip planning very simple. Going east, look for stops where buses are facing that direction. West, same story, or whatever. I had a hard time learning the bus routes and schedules when I first arrived, mostly because I had such a negative attitude towards them. I mean, what's the point of learning a schedule when there really isn't one, and buses just kind of show up whenever? So get over that bias as quickly as you can. Buses, light rails, and trains here in Finland are clean, reliable, and dependable. The drivers are professional and courteous. They are well trained and respected for what they do. They are not the most patient bunch when it comes to dealing with people who don't understand how to buy a fare or use the pass system, but this is because they have a schedule to keep, after all, and you are making them late. So now that I've convinced you to give Finnish public transportation a try, how exactly do you do that? It's too easy. When you move into a town or city, search out the app for the local transit service. In Helsinki, for example, it's called HSL. Download the app, register and sign in, link your payment card to the app, done. Now you can check schedules in real time, buy tickets, plan routes, it's all too easy. Smaller towns may not have an app of their own, but may use a service provider such as Valti. Here in Lahti, this is the go-to app, where you can even reload your transit pass with a monthly or defined cash amount. When you are boarding a bus or light rail, there are usually 4 ways you can pay a transit fare. You can pay the driver in cash or coin in small denominations. You can use your credit or debit card at the reader. You can buy a ticket online using the app, or you can even use your transit pass card. If you are paying cash or using a card, you will first select the zones that you need to travel through. For example, A to B are the most often traveled to. It's the same process when you buy your ticket on the app. The fare will display and you will be charged the correct amount. Be careful not to select a zone that you do not need to travel to, as in A to C, for example, when you are only going to Zone B. It is a waste of money, and I have done this a couple of times using a value-loaded transit pass card, where if you skip the zone selection part, it will charge you the highest fare available, say A to D, instead of a much cheaper A to B. If you buy a ticket online using the app, you will have a certain amount of time to transfer to another bus on the way to your destination, typically 1 hour. This may be the case if you pay cash or use the point-of-sale system, although you may need to ask for a printed transfer slip. I don't know because I've never used this method. It's better to purchase your ticket in advance online because it has this transferability built in, and it is cheaper, about 10% less than paying cash. But if you are doing this and know you are transferring, don't buy your ticket too far in advance because the clock is ticking. You also don't want to be that guy standing there making everyone wait as you buy your ticket at the last second. So 5 minutes or so before your bus is due works just fine. Remember, the bus will be on time. Reloadable transit pass cards are available at the local C-store chain known as R-kioski. Like the supermarkets, these C-stores are ubiquitous throughout Finland. with the same layouts, products, and so forth. There are 2 kiosks at the torri, one on each side. Look for the familiar colors and signs anywhere in Finland if you need a coffee and a croissant or a bus pass. You will be able to buy a transit pass card for a small fee here. You can buy 2 types. One is an unlimited ride pass, good for a specific duration, typically 30, 60, or 90 days. These are sold by zone, so if you only travel to zones A to B, you do not need to buy an A to D card, obviously. The other type of pass card is a cash value one that you simply put money on, and it ticks off as you use it. I have both types. One is my daily commuter card, and the other is for traveling outside my usual A to B trips. There is no expiration date on the cash value card, so don't worry about putting money on it, although I wouldn't put too much on there in case you lose it. The monthly pass option is the way to go, especially if you have a job that you will commute to, or are in school, or simply don't like walking much. You may also be eligible for a student or elderly rate depending on your circumstances. Also, here in Lahti, mothers or fathers with a baby stroller ride for free. Parents just queue up to the middle door of the bus, not the front, and there is a large special area for strollers, scooters, and whatnot there. I've used this area to schlep large items that I've bought from thrift stores, like the 32-inch TV I have in my flat. Nobody looks at you too funny for doing this, and it's also a good area for you and your pet to sit. Yes, people do ride public transit options up to and including trains with their dog or cats. There is even an option on the VR train app to select traveling with a dog. I don't think it costs extra, but I wouldn't know since I do not have one. If you have a pass, you can jump on for a stop or two, then hop off without worrying about the cost, since a fare is 2 to 3 euro. And this adds up fast. 6 rides in one day, you'll get tapped out quickly, but a monthly pass is only, in my town, 60 euro, or about 2 euro a day. This can be as little as half a euro or less per ride. It's a deal that can't be beat, and it's why many Finns do not have cars. They don't need them, or even want them. I was a big car guy before I got here, but now it's nice having someone drive me around. I can study my Finnish, listen to music, and buses here are fast. It's only 15 minutes or so, half an hour at most it seems, to get from one side of town all the way to the other. So why drive? Being charged too much can happen using the cash or card option as well. Again, this comes from not understanding the zone selection part of the process, so be careful. If you don't understand as you board the bus, you can politely ask the driver if they can help you, using the anteeksi or excuse me words you have learned. Most, if not many drivers will speak some English and will gladly help you if you first ask them nicely. This is where the phrase anteeksi en puhu suomea, puhutko englantia will come in very handy. Learn this phrase first. You will use it a lot. It means, I'm sorry, I don't speak Finnish. Do you speak English? Most Finns will reply that they do, or that they do not in perfect English. Go figure. And will appreciate your poor attempt to speak their language. They will appreciate it more if you say it in perfect Finnish. Typically, all the buses that pass your stop will go to the tori or town center as part of the route, so you don't need to wait for your bus. Typically, you can just hop on any bus that passes by, then switch to the correct one at the tori. If you need to transfer buses to get to your destination, again, you can always do this at the tori, although it may be more convenient and a little faster somewhere at a certain stop along the way. Usually, there will be a bus stop within 100 meters or so of where you are or where you live, unless you are out at the summer cabin, in which case you might have to, walk a kilometer or two to the nearest stop. Here is a picture of the stop nearest to my flat. This is the stop that I will take to the tori. If you look at the picture carefully, you will see a stop on the other side of the road, which is where you will get off if you are coming from the tori to get to my place. Bus stops are typically always like this. Just look across the road from where you got off, and you will see the stop that you will take to get back where you came from. There are typically one or more bus lines that will go directly near or to the train station. So, for example, in my case, I could grab a bus to the train station, hop on the commuter train to Helsinki, which is 100 kilometers away, and be at my desk at my job in less time than many people spend driving from one side of LA to the other. Plus, the trains are very nice, quiet, and peaceful, unlike the road rage-filled commute you may be used to. Ideally, I have convinced you that you can exist and function normally in Finnish society without having a car of your own. Again, since this episode has run so long, I'll cover planes, trains, and automobiles in the next one. Also scooters and bikes and cabs. Oh my! Thanks for joining me here today at the Finntegration Society channel. Please take a moment to like this video and check out the first 9 using the links in the description below. I've also included a lot of good information in the description about my services, and also some really good resources to help you learn about Finnish language, culture, and history. I highly recommend both the Katchats Finnish and the Her Finland channels I've linked for this purpose. Also, if you have enjoyed my work and feel that you receive some value from it, you can always buy me a coffee on Ko-fi or Patreon using the links in the description. Please be sure to subscribe to the channel and tell a friend about it. I really appreciate it when my 8 viewers support me in this way. Thanks! Finally, email me directly with comments, questions, or suggestions for future episodes at fintegrationsociety@gmail.com. Thanks again for watching, and I look forward to one day saying to you, Tervetuloa Suomeen! Welcome to Finland!